1, 2, 1, 2, set, play. Improv, set, play. Bridge, 2, set, play. Blues, head, set, play.
So before we begin, it'd be nice to see some preparatory exercises that get our hands, our left hand working in these higher positions of the fretboard that we're going to need to play this head smoothly. If we played it up here in first position all the time, it would sound really bad, and the shifts would be almost unbearable, and the stretches for that matter too. So let's look at an exercise that you have to play for your audition anyhow, this 2-5-1 key center in E flat major. Starts with the F Dorian, and B flat mixolydian, then E flat major. Notice all the notes are part of the E flat major scale, except they're just starting on a different scale degree or number of the scale. So for instance, in E flat major, the second scale degree, 2, is F. So whenever you play a mode based off of the second scale degree of the major scale, so the same notes, same key, but this time starting on F, that's called the Dorian mode. Right? Then when you start on the fifth note of the scale, or in this case the B flat, it's called the mixolydian mode. When you start on the first degree of the scale, of course, that's just the major mode. That's just the major scale. So basically there's a mode for every scale degree that you start on of a major scale, of any major scale. And you should learn all of those in addition to the second one, the fifth one, and then of course the major scale, the Dorian mixolydian major. Makes a nice 2-5-1 sound, which is the chords that belong to each one of those scale degrees. And you can learn about that too. So next I'd like to look at something that pertains more to the blues form. Each one of these chords in the blues form, you see a lot of what you call like 7 chords, or dominant 7 chords they're called. These are the chords that are just like a letter name plus a 7. So what's going on with those is it's just a major arpeggio, which is 1, 3, and 5 out of that major scale. But instead of having a major 7 on top, we have what you call a minor 7. So it's basically a 7 that's just a note down. So in the case of E flat, we would have E flat is the 1, G is the 3, B flat is the 5, so that's 1, 3, and 5. That's our major chord or major arpeggio. Then the flat 7 is at D flat now, so it's not D natural. Here's an exercise that uses that mixolydian mode. Notice I tagged on the 5th and the 7 and the 1 at the end to get some more room, learn the scale in a wider position. Here's the same thing with the A flat 7 or A flat mixolydian. Then the other key area of the blues, the 5, here's B flat 7. We already know that one. Another one you see a lot is this 2 chord, or the F Dorian. We already learned that one, but let's learn it in a different position down here in first position. So there you go. That highlights the big key areas of the blues. Now, in addition, we can learn to make some of these chords on the bass. So what we're going to use are voicings that use the root, the 3rd, and the 7th of each chord. So look at this E flat 7 chord. We use the root, the E flat, then the G is the 3rd, and the D flat is the 7. That's an E flat 7 chord. Then we go up to F. We're going to make a minor 7 chord. So it's F. You got the root. A flat is the 3rd. E flat is the 7. B flat 7. You got B flat. A flat is the 7th. And then the D is the 3rd. Back to E flat 7. Then A flat 7. So it's A flat is the root, G flat is the 7, and C is the 3rd. Back to E flat 7. Then B flat 7 again. A flat 7. You have this turnaround at the end, the last two measures. You have E flat 7, C 7, so you have C, B flat is the 7th, and E is the 3rd. Then F minor 7 again, B flat 7. So all together you can play it like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I'm sorry. Then B flat. Yeah, A flat. Then the turnaround. And just keep doing that over and over. So there's the beginning. 3rd bar. 4th bar. 5th bar. Use that 9th bar on B flat. And then you turn around. That'll help you see the fretboard and the chord shapes a little better, especially those really important scale degrees, the 7ths and the 3rds of each chord. Those are the most important scale degrees. If you'll notice, if you just left out the bottom note and just played the 7s and the 3s of each chord, you would get some interesting sounding things here. Notice they're really close to each other. A lot of times just a half step off. Notice the that interval right there. So like that first chord, that E flat, you have a G and a D flat on the 3rd and the 7th. That makes a tritone interval. On the 4 chord, you had a G flat and a C. Notice both of those notes are just a half step down or a fret down from the first ones. Then on the B flat 7 chord, that tritone, A flat and D, is just a half step up from the first one on the 1 chord. So you have 1, 4, 5, and 1. Very sneaky, very chromatic. So get that under your belt, and some of these fingerings in the blues head will hopefully make some more sense. So let's look at the first 4 measures of this melody, this blues head for this tune. So what we have here is some really hard notes that you would need to play if you played this thing up in here in first position. But I'm going to show you a fingering the way I play it in a higher position. So check this one out. Notice I used this little slide. notice the position I'm in kind of reflects that E flat Mixolydian scale we worked on in the prep exercises. We have this flexible third here, that G flat to G or F sharp to G, makes it sound like the blues. Then the next phrase, same thing. We go to that dominant 7 of that chord, back to the 5th, like that. So you can start to see some of these chord tones in action, you know, especially on this E flat chord. You see those really heavily in this example. The main thing you want to do when you play this is pay attention to your muting. Be sure that you don't have more than one string ringing out at the same time. Be sure and count the rhythm really carefully. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Be sure you can count it really carefully and play it very slowly and keep it swinging. Da da do da do da do da. Gotta have that 8th note swing. So there you go. There's the first 4 bars. Learn that, and we'll see you on the next 4. So you'll see this example uses a lot of the notes out of that A flat Mixolydian scale. So we have the G flat. There's the first note. That's the 7th of the chord, right? And once again, we have that little flexible third going to the 3rd of the chord. That C, that little half step lead in. That's a real popular blues idiom right there. And see there in the measure, the 3rd measure of this example, we're back in E flat 7. So you're going to see some of those notes in E flat Mixolydian. You heard that 7 up top there, that E flat 7 chord, that D flat. That's what makes it sound like that chord. That's what makes the line good. Be sure and count it carefully. So from the beginning, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. See, it's important to count it because sometimes you don't know it as good as you think you do. So just take it slow and play it really carefully. You know, measure for measure, and learn this 4 bars, and we'll learn the last 4 bars of the head next. Okay, so the last 4 bars of the blues head, you'll see in this first measure that B flat 7 chord. That idea is just straight out of that Mixolydian mode for the most part, but once again it's that flexible third. Instead of the D, the 3rd in the chord, it kind of flexes up to it with the flat 3rd there, that C sharp. And there, that B natural is an anticipation for the next chord. It's the flat 3rd of the next chord. See? Then you're back in E flat, and you remember the blues lick. So, counted, it would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. I think that transition from that 5 chord, that first measure there, to the 4 chord in this head is probably the hardest part, so be sure and practice that a whole lot. So on this improv section, what I would do first, well, there's tons of ways that you can approach this, and we will approach this a few different ways. But I would learn to make music with just the blues scale. Now, I don't mean to make music, you know, using that exact pattern that with those triplets. But first, just start on like on an E flat and a D flat, and just come up with some phrases that use the root and that flat 7 there, that E flat and that D flat. And then, add some more notes. Add the fifth. So we went down to that B flat there. Then back up to the seventh in the root. And then maybe add in, that A natural and that A flat. Back up. Then down to the third and the root. Then back up to the fifth. And so for the last little bit, those last two bars, this changes, you want to learn some turnaround licks that fit the chords really accurately. That's the best place. So you just need to learn a few licks and commit these to memory. Here's one lick I like a whole lot. So that one uses a big fancy tritone sub and some other things that we won't necessarily get into, but it's just a good one to learn, and it's a movable pattern that you can use in any key of the blues when you get a turnaround. Or here's another one that's even more simple. So that one uses some extensions of those chords and a nice little chromatic thing that you've probably heard before. So there's a simple way how to use the blues scale to improvise over the blues. If you want to take it a step further, you can combine those notes with the 7 chords over each key area. So when you think about the first 4 measures, you're thinking about that E flat mixolydian key area, So if I were to mix in some of those notes into what I was playing, you get things that sound like this. Then on the 5th measure, I'd use that A flat mixolydian scale that we studied. Then back to E flat mixolydian for the 7th and 8th bar. Then B flat mixolydian there on the 9th bar. Then back to A flat mixolydian. And then you have the turnaround. So you can be free to experiment if you know those notes in the chords, like you could have practiced in those chord exercises, or as you see them belonging to each of the scales that the chords belong to. So there you go. Just put a lot of time playing with the track and experimenting with your own ideas, and always just play what sounds good. So this next section is the bridge section, and notice it's a standard kind of walking bass line. It sounds like this. Notice it outlines the chords that it needs by these associated kind of scale patterns. So this A flat 7 chord over the first 2 bars, you see that A flat mixolydian mode that we covered. And then the E flat mixolydian mode on the next 2 bars. Then the A flat mixolydian. And then you lead down to the F minor, which is well, it's an F7 chord, so that'd be like an F mixolydian, right? Then B flat. So you can hear the harmony really clear and kind of follow the sense of why it sounds like that because of those scales. So be sure and play those notes really connected. The fingering will help, and it'll make it sound really smooth. And that's what a walking bass line is all about. It sounded real smooth. And here's the last 12 bars of the tune. It's the blues head out, but with the walking bass line instead of playing the head again. So it sounds like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice you see a lot of those same familiar notes out of each of those Mixolydian scales that's associated with each of those key areas or each of those chord areas. So be sure to notice that and just play it really smooth and connected.